Well, hello, folks. I'm L.A. Little, and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. Well, we take a look at these markets, and we do it from a neoclassical perspective each time, asking ourselves what happened today, and what does it tell us about the coming days. I do this show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday. It's broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time. It's archived on YouTube. It's under the channel L.A. Little. If you're not subscribed, reach up there on the right-hand side, subscribe. Anytime I push content, be it evening, daytime, morning, whenever, you'll get a notification. You can keep up with what's going on. As far as what did happen in these markets today, let's take a peek. As I'd said last night, I thought that we were going to see some sort of a, not so much necessarily a plunge or anything, but definitely some pressure, some pricing pressures. And even though we did end higher today, given the way this market's trading, it looks to me like this market is going to struggle to get higher. We had at the winners were the S&P 500 and the Dow. You were barely break even on the composite and on the NDX itself. Apple was helping the NDX. Gold, silver, those kinds of things, they were struggling today. You had the dollar higher. More Fed speak coming out today, kind of hawkish Fed speak. And when you look at it all in all, that pushed bonds down. And overall, this market, looks to me like it's going to just struggle from here on in. Let's take a look at some of these charts. Last night when I was talking, I was highlighting the difficulty on a weekly basis, more so than on a daily basis. If you look at the weekly, this big bar, pushed up, got above this price point, couldn't stay above it, right? Got back into this big bar down, closed there. And today you're doing a little bit of a bounce inside of it. If we pull it back up and look at the daily chart today, you can see it was an inside day. Volume's a lot lighter, of course, than the options expiration last week. But S&P really not really telling us anything here tonight. Where you do see something, though, is you see it on the other charts, in particular on the NASDAQ composite, the NDX, and the Russell. And what you have there is you actually go underneath price. You have less volume. That says this thing is going to try and trade back up tomorrow. Most likely, you have that same situation showing here on the NDX as well. So it gets under, back over. And then if I go to the Russell, also that same situation, even though the Russell looks even worse the way it opened and closed. So if anything, we've got a little bit of a mixed picture, some sort of an attempt to bounce tomorrow. But, my general picture, again, if I just, close this and go to the weekly, my general picture here is that this market is going to try and trade lower as this week continues. So I'm not really hopeful by what I see so far. Looks to me like just a little bit of a, too much of a sell down. If I go back here to the S&P, too much of a sell down the last couple days, off that Fed news where the Fed said, hey, we're not going to, raise the rates yet. It was just too fast of a sell down, big volume expansion. Now you get a little bit of that options expiration wear off, a little bit of a bounce, maybe get a little bit more tomorrow. But I just don't see the catalyst to take this higher despite that. And if I look overseas, there's really nothing overseas to tell me that either. You had inside days in Europe. The only exception was the German market. That was a result of the disclosure that Volkswagen had essentially falsified some of the emissions reports. It was down something like 20% itself. It went under, back over on the German market. But if you look like on the CAC was just an inside day. So I don't really see much overseas. I don't see much in Asia either. There really just wasn't much happening on that front. The one front that did have some action today was the biotechs. And if we pop over there to take a look at that, here on the biotechs, you just got slaughtered today. And there was There was some talk out of the presidential campaign, in particular Clinton campaign, about how, there's a price gouging going on. Look at the volume coming out of these as they sold them with reckless abandon. This was one of the few areas in the market that has just refused to give it up. Today, this one also gets back inside the big bars range. And, if you can stay down here for a couple bars, you can start to seek the other side. Breaks a swing point low today. That's going to reconfirmed on the downside, right? Has the volume. These look like they're going to try to trade lower. And if they're trading lower, that's going to put pressure on the XLV. And the XLV, of course, the biotech's big brother, which is the healthcare sector, 1.38% lower. And, one of the things that struck me today, and I'll pull up a different chart. I'm going to pull up the financials. One thing that struck me today is these look like such tiny moves. And the reason for it, of course, is that the price range here has been expanded tremendously as a result of this huge, spike low on that Monday morning when everything kind of looked like it was going to hell in a handbasket. And so, today's move looks like it's absolutely nothing there. Well, it's a 1% move. 1% any other time would be a significant move. But in these markets, on these particular charts, these minute looking moves themselves are fairly large in comparison. So we had some decent push in most of the sectors. Big drop in the biotech. You had some weakness in the semiconductors. All of that, of course, is what was pushing the NASDAQ and the NDX lower. Apple was kind of counteracting that with the news of a 2019 launch date for a car. And, I'm not sure I'm the one to speak to the technological prowess of Apple, but it just seems like a car is a little bit far out there in terms of their technological capability. Now, it's Apple, so I guess they can do what they want. They've certainly got plenty enough money to do whatever they want. But, maybe you're pushing a little bit outside the scope of what you really can and can't do. But sector-wise, other than the biotechs, wasn't a bad day. And if I move over to look at the OX markets, the only thing that stands out there to me and something that catches my eye, should be catching yours, is the dollar. A dollar after, Fed said we're not going to raise rates. Dollar sells off. Very next day, Friday, reverses, heads back up again today. Dollar is not going to sell off, or simply doesn't want to sell off. If the dollar is going to go higher, that's going to press, it's going to press back into the swing point high, potentially that swing point high, and then get you back to the highs. A, B, C, D, if you take and project things here on the dollar, and I don't know if it's going to turn out this way or not, but if you project on the dollar, you've got the potential for some sort of an A, B, C, D structure to form. And if it does, right, that takes it back up to the highs, right, to test back up there. And the reason that's important is because a stronger dollar puts pressure on S&P 500 profits. And so once this dollar does reassert itself back to the top side, if in fact that is what's going to happen, then that's going to be an issue. It's not an issue now. Potentially could be an issue a little bit later on. Here's the ranges that are currently in effect. And so the real test on this dollar will be the test into this area right here, which is kind of the dividing line between the two. And then, of course, the swing point highs that are right up above it. That would be multiple breaks on multiple time frames and could shoot this dollar right back up to test those highs. So the dollar is something that keeps catching my eye. If the dollar moves higher, as I said, S&P earnings probably get hurt eventually. It's not a big thing right now because it's been settled. In other words, this is not something new. This has been going on. What would be a big thing, of course, would be more pressure on commodities, more pressure on anything that is priced in dollars, including oil and so forth. And that has been where a lot of the issues have been coming from. And if you really want to underscore it and pull over the monthly chart, you can see what kind of a spike up took place. And now, if I was doing the classic TA stuff, and I was looking at this and telling you, this is a flag, formation off of a nice big move higher on a classical TA, sense of the word. Those things typically are bullish. And even though I don't practice this anymore, I'm certain anybody that's looking at this is probably looking at this same scenario. The dollar does want to go higher at some point. There's the potential, of course, for it to come back and do a retest regen off these prior highs. Odds of that don't look very good, but it is possible to make that move back down on a monthly time frame. Of course, before you ever got there, you'd have to do it over here on the weekly. And the weekly, you don't even have a swing point high to look at. You have to go way back in time. So looks to me like the dollar's probably going to hold at this price, try to push higher. That's going to continue to put pressure on commodities. And so when you look over at things like silver, or you look at, say, gold, or you look at commodities in general, right? These things are going to have a hard time. Let's pull up the grains. I haven't looked at those in a while. They're going to have a hard time. And here's the grains. They're not doing so well. If I look at copper, copper probably not looking so well. Let's put it on a weekly, coming back up to do a test. On and on and on. Commodities are going to be a problem. And they have been, still going to be. I don't see that changing. We had a 3% bounce in oil today, and it doesn't even look like anything happened. Folks, I expect, to give you a wrap here, I expect that this week is going to be a tough week. I also expect that if you look forward in time, there's really no catalyst on the agenda until you get out into the earnings season. Outside of that, right, there's two events that could take place, and that's devaluation of currency in China. President Lee is coming over here, or Premier Lee is coming over here, I think this week, and probably tomorrow, I believe. And once he gets done, then there's the potential that he goes back, and then all these things that can be holding everything steady, can actually be loosened up again, and maybe another devaluation take place. The other thing, of course, is more QE in Europe. Both of those are kind of unscheduled events that could happen almost at any time. And so if they do, right, be aware that they're going to move currencies. Currencies are going to move bonds. Bonds and currencies are going to move stocks. So don't expect the volatility to disappear anytime soon. And expect, if volatility picks up, you're probably going to see more pressure on these markets. I'm going to leave it at that. It's been a long day. I will see you tomorrow. My prognosis, as it was last night, is this market's going to struggle. Have a good one. Take care.